Yeah.
And of course, if you are ordering cocktails, you have to get them without ice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Fuck ice.
Because fuck ice, absolutely.
Way of turning this motherfucker.
Hey, welcome to Who the Fuck Closed Last Night. We're really thrilled to have you joining us. This episode has a little bit more serious tone than we normally would take. It's a topic that's really, really important to us here, and that's the topic of immigration and how it affects our industry and how it's affecting our industry currently in 2025 with all this bullshit where they're fucking gulagging and deporting people for existing. And we talk a little bit about that with Laura Lunn, the Director of Advocacy and Litigation for the Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network, REMAIN for short. This is by no means an all-inclusive single conversation that we had. It is the first one that we've started to talk about this with the podcast, but we're going to keep discussing this because it's super important to us here that humans aren't illegal and immigrant rights are human rights, and they are being stripped away on a daily basis right now. So we're going to jump into this episode, get a little bit more information. I hope you learned as much as me and Chad did, and thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the other side.
Well, we'll just casually get into it. Guys, welcome to another episode of Who the Fuck Closed Last Night. We have a very special episode. We're going to cover the topic of immigration, and we have a special guest, Laura Lunn. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited about this.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, seriously. You're the Director of Advocacy and Litigation for the Rocky Mountain Immigration Advocacy Network, correct?
Yes, Immigrant Advocacy Network.
Oh, awesome.
REMAIN.
REMAIN.
You can just call us REMAIN. It's a lot easier.
I've been...
Sorry, it's a mouthful. Yeah.
It's all good. Can you tell us a little bit about, first off, what your organization does?
Sure. So Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network, or REMAIN, we are a nonprofit organization, and we provide free legal services to people, so adults in immigration detention.
Mm-hmm.
There's a giant detention facility run by ICE in Aurora, Colorado. I just came from there right before this show.
Right.
And then we also help unaccompanied kiddos and their families who are navigating the immigration process.
Yeah. You know, our service industry, then we have 1/3 of the entire industry is immigrants. So it's like such an important part of our industry. But can you speak a little bit on how important immigration is to like our economy as a whole?
So, I'm not an expert on our economy, that's
okay.
for sure. I represent people in immigration court, but I think, what's so critical to understand is just like what a vital part of like our community these folks are. Yes, they certainly add funds to our economy. They pay taxes, they're working, they're consuming, they're renting or owning, right? Like all of these facets. But also their kids go to schools here. They're coaching soccer teams. They are so ingrained in our community, and they're our neighbors. And so it's really important for us to stand alongside them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I know you and I have been so close to so many people in our industry who've become our friends, felt like family members to us. Yeah.
I mean, I know from my perspective, specifically with, speaking on restaurants and the service industry, I could not even have gotten involved with this podcast or been successful in my job and my career if it weren't for working alongside of immigrants for the past 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it is kind of such an experience-based thing where that's just such a part of my life to have people that are from other countries, just not like ethnic origins, like this person 2 years ago was not here in this country, that sort of thing, right? Like maybe they don't even speak the same language as I do, but we can still work together. And so with everything happening currently with, I don't know, it's so difficult to kind of, if you can't see personally, like you see everything on a day-to-day basis, you're advocating for people. As far as currently in like third quarter 2025, there's been over the past since the administration change, there's been, at least on the news outlets, a lot of like shifts and like alterations, right, of like increased people even in Denver stings in the neighborhoods and in restaurants. Is that, from your perspective, you've been working on this for, I imagine, a long time at this point.
Yeah, about 15 years.
Yeah, like how is that?
How have things shifted?
Yeah, how has that shift been, and then how does it relate to maybe some of these issues that have been going on with our government over the 15 years, regardless of administration or exactly how the news is painting the picture? I'm sure it's always an uphill battle for immigrants in our country.
Yeah, I mean, I think the system is built in such a way that it is very tilted in one direction, right? Like the government gets an attorney in every single immigration proceeding. They are always represented by counsel, and there is no right to court-appointed counsel in immigration proceedings.
Really?
So most people are pro se, which just means they're sitting there in front of a judge next to a trained prosecutor who went to law school, right? Yeah. And they don't have any kind of like basic understanding of what their legal rights and obligations are. And then they're having to navigate like very complicated legal proceedings by themselves unless they can afford to hire counsel. So that's just like the baseline where we're starting things, right?
Yeah.
What we're seeing now is unprecedented in terms of how much enforcement is coming down the pike. There was just an article released in the Denverite earlier today, I think, saying that ICE enforcement has increased fourfold here in Colorado over the past 8 months. And we're seeing that for sure. Like, there's so many more people in immigration detention. It's kind of buckling under the pressure of just how many folks are in the Aurora facility, which can hold up to 1,500 people. That's a huge swath of our community. Yeah. And not to mention that then folks are actually being transferred to places like Wyoming, Kansas, Arizona, Kentucky, even though they're from Colorado, and so they're far away from their families. If they do have an attorney, we've had clients transferred away. It makes it so much harder for us to do our jobs when people are not here in our community and we're not able to go meet with them in person and call them on the phone easily. So it's just made everything, like access to justice, like so much more difficult when there's a huge influx of people in the system, not an equal kind of growth in terms of the community, the legal community able to serve them. And then we're just seeing people sit in detention and be really confused about what their rights are. We used to be able to provide group Know Your Rights presentations in the Aurora facility, and the government has terminated the program that allowed us to just give people basic information about the status of their cases.
Gotcha.
Oh, that's just incredibly frightening too.
Yeah, but I'm so curious to hear from you guys because I'm on the other side, right? Like I'm working with folks once they have been apprehended, and I talk to clients who are like really afraid of being picked up. A lot of my clients have already, been in the immigration system for a long time and maybe have past experience being detained, but they're, just trying to navigate their day-to-day lives. So I have those kinds of touch points, but I'm so curious to hear from you all when you're like in the community, when you're, working in a restaurant, and like, what is the climate like, and how have you all seen that shift?
Man, it's definitely So when I can tell you, like when we first, when the administration first got into office and started increasing the ICE activity, I talked to my managers and being like, hey, what's our plan in case something happens? And we started looking stuff up, and at the time it was like, oh, well, if they don't have a warrant that's signed by a judge, then they can't come in and we can refuse to let them in. Then, if we need to have a lawyer on standby, and those things even changed. So now, like when we heard a rumor, it was just like one day it was like somebody came in from another restaurant and was like, ICE just raided Mary Jane. And our host, out of fear, she is here legally, but she was just like gone. She was just like out of there. And several members of our kitchen as well. We were just like, hey man, if you don't feel safe right now, like get out of here. So it's like an underlying fear that's like that we've been experiencing and for everybody of like what's going to happen, because it feels like they're not following the rules, that the rules have been thrown out the window, that they are coming in with masks and unmarked vehicles, and it feels like the Gestapo. But
it's like you want to like, you almost want to avoid like comparing it to these historical like military authoritarian regimes. Yeah, but it's just so actually that it's like this rogue other entity that most of us have never really dealt with. I mean, obviously you have been dealing with ICE to one degree or another your entire, but for, an average citizen like myself, it's like, to me, there's the cops and like the military and politicians, and that's kind of it. And then now there's this new thing that's just, people are just getting jobs in left and right, or however it's kind of really happening, and they're just growing, and like you said, fourfold. Was that right? Like, and yeah, there's, especially there's the cultural perception, right? Just, for people like Chad and I, we're white men, and we clearly sound like we're from the U.S., much less like, I work in a restaurant where I work with a girl from Ukraine and a guy from Venezuela and a guy from France, and then there's people of all, a little bit more diversity than you would see represented in most of Colorado, because we are, as a demographic, quite white. But we kind of have this experience of like, I feel like these ICE agents would come in and they're just going to start looking for people that are brown. And it's just, that's sort of how there's that tension in the community of that you could just be not white and something really bad could happen to you because the wrong group of dudes that are associated with this agency are rolling in and kind of handcuffing and tackling and putting people into cars and asking questions later is what people assume is going to happen kind of any day. Yeah. And so there's places where they have had meetings. I know, like you said, there's like places where if there's a bartender or a front of house person that sees or has like a serious suspicion that ICE is showing up, they have like buttons in the, where you would ring in your food to send a ticket to the kitchen. That usually will say like some version of ICE or something like that, so that they know to tell anyone who has any level of, is anywhere along in the immigration process to get out of there and like go home or like scatter. Like they have real game plans like you would for a fire. Yeah. It's like a threat that poses, it's just one of those things that feels, it's so dystopian, kind of like, schools having to do like school shooting training, right? Yeah. Like, because it's not a matter now of if this did possibly happen, it's just like when this happens eventually, it's in your restaurant. This is what you'll have to do. Yeah, and I guess so,
that kind of leads us to for our like coworkers and friends and families that are worried about their immigration status. What can they do, like as far as to like check on that and and try to remedy that?
Yeah, I mean, I will answer that question, but I want to like pull on one thread of something that you both have kind of alluded to, but I want to be like very clear that what you're saying is that people, even when they do have lawful immigration status here in the United States, are afraid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And
sometimes more so because they're like, there's information on me.
Right. Or I've been doing everything right,
yeah.
and I'm so afraid that someone's going to think I did something wrong. I hear that all the time. And so I just want to make sure that we're like drilling down on that theme where it's not just people trying to who maybe don't have immigration status trying to navigate this. It's people who are here lawfully, who are still like have the fear of God in them
Yeah.
because of what is happening. And I also should say that you mentioned people who are Black and brown being disproportionately targeted. That is a known fact in the system. And we have seen U.S. citizens who've been picked up by ICE, and like an uptick in U.S. citizens who have been apprehended by ICE, where maybe they weren't born in the United States, but they, obtained their citizenship through a parent or something like that. And so a lot of mistakes can get made, and that's, I think, why people are more afraid. And a point I want to make sure I'm making is that I think it's been effective, this rhetoric to like scapegoat certain people and say like they're different than us in some way. So like masked folks arresting people, like you really only need to be afraid of that if you are in the other group, right? Of the like scapegoated folks. And I think that that's a really slippery slope, right? And that's why it feels dystopian. That's why it feels scary, because it's like, how far away is any one of us from being disappeared?
Yeah.
And that feels terrifying. And I have worked with families whose loved ones were disappeared to a prison in El Salvador, SECAT, and just like talking to them, it's like your mind is blown, their mind is blown. It is wild to have a conversation when you understand that the person knows their loved one was disappeared because they saw their image on national news in a prison in another country that they've never been to, right? So, I mean, these things are all really wild, and I think it's important for us to recognize that it's not about us or folks who are here without lawful status or whatever, right? It's like, this is scary for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
And it erodes our due process rights if it's eroding other folks' due process rights.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, it undermines the entire thing.
Yes.
Exactly. But to answer your question, I didn't forget, I swear. I think what information is power is like the best thing I can say. So like gathering information about like, have you ever had contact with immigration in the past? Can you gather any kind of information about what information that the government might have about you? Can you bring that to an immigration attorney and get a consult to better understand what your rights and responsibilities might be? There are various different ways in which somebody can get lawful immigration status in the United States. It's always prudent, in my mind, to go ahead and get a screening done so that people know, whether or not it's a good time to pursue those, or it's kind of like a backup plan. Like if immigration officials were to arrest someone, it's good to have a plan of like, what would you do if that comes to fruition? And some people want to fight because they want to be here in the United States. Some people have really strong cases to remain in the United States. And some people make the choice. Like I've heard so frequently recently, people are like, if people don't want me here, I don't want to be here. And I think just like having these like really challenging conversations of like, what would you do in this situation where people are making like educated choices when they're of sound mind versus like after the trauma of an arrest, which can be horrifically traumatic, then trying to figure out like, what are my next steps? I really think just like doing some pre-planning is the best advice I could give to folks.
Right. Yeah, that's, it's also, it's like, it's so detrimental to this country to not have immigration. Like if we got to a net zero immigration point where people are leaving our country, that is just detrimental for everybody across the board. The job markets, the economy, the social aspects. It just is a frightening. I hate to it's weird because it sounds hyperbolic, but it feels like all those conversations you had in 8th grade where you're studying about World War II and the Nazis, and you go through these things of like, oh, well, if I was in that time, I would be the person hiding people in my basement, hiding people, and because I would never do that. And how could this whole country be fooled? But it's really, it feels like it doesn't take the whole country to be fooled. It just takes a large enough portion to oppress the other people. And I feel like we're in a time like that where people should be asking themselves, what do I do now?
Yeah, sort of what side of history am I?
Do I want to be a part of?
Right now?
Yeah.
And like how am I a good ally in this? And I think that's certainly a question you all are asking, right?
Absolutely.
And in terms, I guess, one thing specifically with the restaurants, what would be your recommendation for maybe best practices of getting information, like outside of having professional conversations, maybe say like managers and in our instance bartenders, leaders in a workspace, as far as opening that door to like being actively an ally? Because I suppose we would always be like, I hope there's not one guy in here who's wants to call ICE on our kitchen staff or something. Sure. Right? Because that's very much so like a lot of your back of house staff, a lot of like your morning prep teams, and some of those roles. A lot of time, I know for the restaurant I work at, it's mostly language barrier individuals. Right? They're I don't know their immigration status. I don't know these people personally, but I guess as far as having those dialogues, if you feel that someone in your workplace may be at risk, or they may feel, how do we create these spaces, or what are some of the ways to create these spaces so if they are concerned and they do need their community, to open up that dialogue and like get that information to them, like, hey, if you need help, if you need a plan of action in this workspace, how can we help provide that as a team for you? Maybe I asked that in a really long-winded way.
I think you answered your own question.
Maybe,
I think you were like,
maybe.
let's communicate, let's be supportive.
Absolutely.
I think that's the answer, right? It's just, and I should say this is not like an attorney answering this question. This is like a human being answering this question. Like, how do we communicate with the people around us? How do we offer care and support? And I think it's that, and asking, what is it that you need here? And again, like, I often don't know the immigration status of folks, even when I know that they were born in a different country, right? Like that, just because someone was born in a different country doesn't resolve that question. And so I think just like being in community with folks, and, I also recognize that folks who are U.S. citizens, especially people who might have had prior interactions with the criminal legal system, might be triggered by all of this too. So I certainly wouldn't want to overlook them, because I think any kind of like mass enforcement action is really scary. I mean, I would say I have not had too much of an interaction with it myself, like on a personal level, but I can't imagine how afraid I would be in that state. So I think it's like a conversation that no matter who you are, what your status is, you should be a part of, and like making a plan for your community to feel as supported and safe as possible.
Certainly. Yeah, I mean, I think our industry and some of the things that we've talked about, it's very, very much so a lot of outcast is one word. There are a lot of people that, there are our industry is a place where people with felonies can get jobs, a place where there's there's a high occurrence of neurodivergence, and that a lot of times behavioral issues are people who maybe have been in and out of the legal system, that sort of thing. So there is that sort of higher likelihood, as opposed to many other professional settings where there is that fear, like, oh, maybe you ask the wrong ICE agent for a warrant, and then you get arrested, but you have 2 DUIs or something, and then now you're stuck in this same boat as whoever else they brought in this past week or whatever, right? So,
Well, and let's be clear, ICE does not have jurisdiction to arrest U.S. citizens.
They do not.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Has there been an occurrence of just, depending on, someone being, maybe forceful towards these agents if they were going for a raid or anything like that?
Somebody threw a sandwich at an ICE agent recently, and I think they got detained by the police. But yeah. But it does. I mean, it is scary. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a recent? It may have been the Supreme Court, where it basically opened the door to this administration being able to deport citizens. Am I wrong on that? I might be wrong on that.
So the U.S. government cannot deport U.S. citizens.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, though there have been incidents of that happening.
Right.
That is a mistake.
Yeah.
U.S. citizens should always be guaranteed entrance to the country too, if they're coming across a border and they're seeking entry into the United States, even if there was some type of like criminal legal issue. U.S. citizens have the right to be in the country.
Right. Okay. Which is
yes,
what's
but,
supposed to happen.
I think that the birth rate citizenship has been a hot button topic.
It has been.
And so, that's something that's been that is working its way through the court system. But as of right now, the Constitution and the amendments are still intact.
Okay.
Okay. I guess it's just like you mentioned. It's sort of one person in our community's rights being violated. Sort of gives that feeling of undermining, like who's next, what else can be removed, how many rights can be stripped away because of their succeeding. If any entity is succeeding in taking those rights, any right away, then how are we confident that any of them are protected?
It's totally wild to me that that's not like a bigger part of the conversation, honestly. Because I just like keep watching it happen, and I'm outraged. And I'm like, are other people paying attention? Because this is really scary to me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, like ignoring habeas corpus and and even like making, trying to make people that do have legal status, stripping them of their visas and taking away, twisting the rules to all of a sudden they're undocumented, so they can be easily targeted, which is just.
Yeah, but there is we see that kind of enforcement, and there is a tension with the legality of that. And so the courts have been like battling through these types of cases, and in lots of instances are saying like, no, you can't do this. You can't act in this rogue manner. You can't take away somebody's lawful immigration status just so that you have a mechanism to deport them.
Right.
Like there is process, and people have a right to that process. And we're seeing courts across the country being faced with those decisions. And I feel comforted in a lot of the very smart judges on the bench who are, being very brave and issuing decisions against the administration.
It does feel like one of the last walls that is still holding is the judges in the legal process. As much as the administration still tries to undermine that, it seems, even throwing out the ideas of, well, if the Supreme Court says this, we're just going to ignore it, which is unprecedented. I'm kind of sick of hearing the word unprecedented, frankly. It seems like every other day it's like, well, we've never seen this before.
The word is scary.
It is.
Like, let's simplify it. It's unprecedented and very frightening.
Yeah, fucking frightening.
Yeah, okay. I was like, I'm not sure.
Oh, we got fuck in our name.
Yeah. I did want to ask, maybe a couple more specific questions that I think would benefit people that are just, let me get this thought back together real quick. So if someone is seeking help, maybe someone who has family that they're concerned about, or just wants to have a plan like you mentioned about reaching out to your organization, something of that sort, I feel like people may be worried that anything they do will put a target on their back. When dealing with I feel like I know the answer, but just so that when reaching out for information about themselves and immigration status when reaching out to an organization for potential planning for legal representation, does that put them at risk, any more risk of having an interaction with ICE at all? As far as, is there some sort of, the image I have is just like ICE agents like watching or like,
Lurking.
following the conversation, lurking. I don't think that's exactly how it is, but
that is not my experience, no. Thankfully, I have not found any lurkers around our office, but we do have a plan in case that were to happen. No, I would say, just like the professional rules of responsibility and our ethics rules as attorneys, like all of that information is private. If anyone does a consultation with an attorney, it's bound by those rules. So reaching out to an attorney's office, there's tons of private attorneys. You would have to pay a fee to talk to them. But I think it's really worth that investment to just kind of like get a roadmap of, what are your options? What might that look like? And then have, like I said, a plan of like how you might want to proceed. So reaching out to an immigration lawyer, there's a professional association called the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and there's a Colorado chapter. I would recommend looking at their webpage for a list of attorneys' offices there. I myself am a member. And you want to make sure that you have good rapport with them, that you feel comfortable, obviously, before you're spilling your guts and telling people, like, here's my whole life story. Because that's essentially what people do when they come and talk to me. It's like, this is why I left my home country. Here are all the reasons why I can't go back. Here's the community that I've built here in the United States. And so I'm just assessing, like, legally, what might their options be. And then I can provide them with that kind of roadmap. And I think that is... has so much value. And it might be an investment, like I said, but I think it's a good one to make at this very moment, so that people can really understand, hey, I don't have to live in fear because I actually have a pretty good immigration case. I could win my case and I could get to stay here. Or I know that I don't have a really good immigration case and someone's weighed in and helped me better understand that, but that's information I didn't have before. And now I need to have some conversations with myself and my community about like what my plan would be if I am picked up. And how do I live my life with dignity and with the most amount of autonomy that I can possibly have. Because I think, again, having information is just kind of a form of power that I hope most folks can seek out.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Are there would you suggest a business have a plan similar to this for their employees? Like, say, hey, come talk to us if you're worried about this. Here's a list of lawyers. Here's a list of organizations that.
Totally. I think like having that kind of information available and like doing a little bit of legwork to scout that out. I have heard of like some businesses even having an immigration attorney on retainer who could offer that kind of like bare bones legal information to folks if they're interested. I think it's a bit dodgy too, just in terms of like HR. So I think I would say like, it doesn't make sense for the business to be super involved in those in those conversations, but maybe they're able to help connect folks.
Yeah,
right.
The fact of the matter, Chad and I with our industry, it is so common. I feel like many of the places I worked, I never really asked because I kind of don't want to know, so I couldn't. I couldn't give someone away, but I have worked with a number of people that are completely undocumented.
Oh yeah, having done hiring, it was literally just like, man, give me a social security number that works. I really am not going to ask any other questions.
Oh yeah, and there's plenty of restaurants that have a lot of many like pay cards systems and stuff, so that you don't even have to have an identification number for that employee. Like there's just a number of different companies that exist that create ways for people to be paid that I've seen over the years, just because it's such a commonplace thing in our industry, which I think is what puts a target on and bars in general.
Well, and also let's just like say, like call a spade a spade. the immigration system is super confusing. So like somebody could have a valid social and not have a lawful immigration status.
Right.
That
Totally.
is totally possible. And people don't understand that.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think just like it's befuddling.
Yeah.
I have, this is my area of expertise, and I still like scratch my head oftentimes when I'm like looking at someone's documents and I'm trying to figure out what is going on here. So I wouldn't anticipate that, business owners would automatically know the answers to these like very complicated legal questions. So I think it's just like important to like really like, again, say like there's smokes and mirrors around the system for a reason. People can't really understand it. It makes it really hard for businesses to navigate it. Obviously, businesses need to be in compliance with the law, and like we recognize that this exists in our country, and I personally believe that this is a very intentional system that exists because it is a mechanism to control people if they don't have a pathway to work lawfully.
It also is, the research I was doing, like, we haven't had major immigration reform since like 1986.
1996
with Bill Clinton. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was Reagan before that, and then Bill Clinton tweaked some things. But that also seems intentional, where it's like, well, if we fix this issue, then we can't fire people up and make them angry at people that they just don't.
No, it's like a very popular political talking point. And so if you actually were to remedy the system's flaws, then you wouldn't have that to run on.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk all day about that. I just think, what were you doing in 1996? I guess I start there. Like I was in
3.
elementary school.
I was in elementary school as well. Yeah.
I'm like, what was the world, like what was happening in the world? It's just so wild to me to think that like our community, our living and breathing community has not had like any kind of like shift in how we're like operating since 1996. Like the world is a very different place, and like the push and pull factors that have caused people to come to the United States are very different today than they were in 1996. After there were like tons of coups and
that was
guerrilla wars.
That was before the towers fell.
It was.
Just like
a huge,
a whole lot of stuff has changed.
Yeah.
And it's wild to me that we don't have new laws that are reflective of that.
Oh, I completely agree, and it's a lot of that, a lot of the chaos that we point out as a country is caused by the United States. I've got a regular who's taught in Guatemala. He and his wife taught Guatemala, and he was telling me, he was like, people don't think about that. Yeah, all these drug cartels that are like, have more money than the government in these areas. We are the ones buying the drugs. And when they buy their guns, they're buying the guns from America because we have extremely loose gun laws. So we're fueling the chaos that is causing people to run from that violence and that turmoil to this country. And then they get here and we blame them for the things that are happening in their country. It's mind-boggling to me and infuriating to me. How do we?
And I think the like greatest irony there is like the folks who I talk to are the ones who are trying to do the right thing, and then their lives were threatened because they didn't want to do the criminal thing, and they came to the United States to try and seek protection, and that's what's really hard when I hear like this rhetoric of like just like negative rhetoric toward people, where you're like, actually the folks who are coming are fleeing violence, and they are really afraid for their lives for good reason, like I was in court this morning, and it's wild to hear what people have survived and how resilient people are, and I think that we should try to embrace that instead of castigate people. One
of those misnomers being that there's a higher rate of crime in the immigrant community, which is, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's not true.
It's
actually lower.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because these are, like you said, people who are coming here trying to do the right thing for themselves, for their family, they're not looking to cause chaos.
Yeah, and I think too, like one of the pieces of rhetoric that you'll hear is people are coming the wrong way, and that's bullshit.
Yeah.
It is always lawful to seek asylum, right? Like if somebody is afraid, it doesn't matter what mechanism, like how they enter the United States. I mean, people don't understand that. Like folks who are coming don't understand our systems, so they don't necessarily know like there is this particular way to try to enter the country. And what we've seen under the past few administrations is like a curtailing of the border such that it makes it almost impossible for people to actually present themselves to immigration officials. And in fact, I've had clients tell me, I called 911 when I crossed the border and said, hey, I'm here. Can you please I want to tell you I am afraid to go home, but I had to cross the border to get into the country because they wouldn't let me at a port of entry. Okay. I also hear regularly from folks like the cartels are preventing people from actually going to ports of entry because they have an interest in smuggling people. And human smuggling is a huge part of their business. And so it's actually making, again, the policies that we have in place are actually enriching cartels and making them more powerful at the expense of folks fleeing for their lives.
Wow. I think there may be this perception, or it seems to me there's this perception of a certain, I guess what is a majority of our voter base in the country right now, that it's like going to Disneyland. There's the welcome to America part of every side of the border, and that's like the right way, as opposed to what it actually is, just a series of pieces of land in various terrains and different levels of officials and entities that are trying to prevent people from
and we know that really well here in Colorado, right? It used to be part of Mexico.
It's not like welcome to USA. Check in here. Take this.
There's
ticket
a
office.
Huge population of folks in Colorado who have just been here the whole time, and then the border has just changed around their community. Which I think a lot of folks in the country don't realize how far north the border was at a certain point. And it used to be the border was just made based off of where the Rio Grande River flowed, and they had to shift that at a certain point when they were like, oh, the river moves,
That's insane. That now how can two guys like us, people in our community at the service industry that want to help advocate and be allies, what are avenues that we should go down, and how can we be solid allies for our coworkers or friends or family?
I mean, my first advice would be ask them, ask the folks who you want to support, what is it that you need? Because they can answer it far better than I can, right? But I think just starting with those questions is so critical. And I think gathering information, you all seem to be very well connected. You know how to find people. And so it's can I just send you a list of attorneys that you could then share publicly? Yes, things like that, where it's here's information. We have a whole Know Your Rights tab on our webpage. It's rmian.org, and it has tons of information that people can sift through in various different languages. Because, like I said, I think empowering people through information is critical. And so sharing that out with folks, helping them be better connected, and then also just seeing people hey, I see that this is really hard for you, and let's talk about it, or let's not talk about it, and let's do something fun to get our minds off of it, whatever it might be. But we have to exist in this community right now. It is a trying time. I cry more often than I would care to admit.
You're seeing your
so it's
really
just
on the front
how can we
lines of
support
this.
each other, whatever that means for folks.
It's incredible. Now
there's a few resources we were finding last week when we were looking just into more of this, which we'll have linked on this episode. And there's a number of funds, for people seeking, legal assistance, so that if they can't fund it, they can, apply for these, funds to help cover legal costs and things of that nature as well, right? So we'll have all of those things linked and are surrounding and inundated around the episode that we're currently in. So
and right now, yeah.
I interrupted you.
No, you're totally fine.
Okay, yeah.
I just wanted to ask, how do you not get overwhelmed? You personally, how do you not get overwhelmed?
Why do you presume I don't get overwhelmed? What is a wild proposition? I do.
Okay. So how do you deal with that?
How do I do that?
Yeah.
I go running. I do some deep breathing. Sometimes I get cocktails, probably from some of your friends. But gosh, I just really believe in this. I believe that people should be treated with dignity and respect. And I believe that they should have access to justice. And I want people who have suffered, persecution and torture to be able to be welcomed into our community and have a safe, supportive environment to live in. Those are my beliefs. People should get to live in a way that feels good to them. And getting to work with just the best people, such wonderful people I've gotten to meet through my job that I don't think I would have met otherwise. And they have taught me so much about this world, about myself, about what it means to just show up and accompany someone through a really hard time.
Yeah. I mean, man, how did you, this is kind of almost backtracking but I want to hear how you chose this form of law. I mean, it could have been a lot easier on doing other things.
I think that every day more lucrative too. Where do you get a nonprofit whose funding has been cut by 40% by the federal government recently? I ask myself that a lot. But I care about people. I want the best for them. I myself lived abroad as a kiddo, and I didn't really understand citizenship. And when I moved back to the States, kids were kind of mean to me, and I was like, what is this thing? And I also lived abroad when I was in high school for a little while, and I lived across from a refugee resettlement center in Dakar, Senegal. And I started asking myself these questions of why do people have to leave their homes? I have this incredible gift of U.S. citizenship where it's really easy for me to travel and to get to live in other places. And I take that for granted. And then it was wild to me to think about these refugee kids from Rwanda who were I still remember their mom asked my mom to take them back to the States with us when we came back to the States. And that was such a hard concept for a 16-year-old to understand, why would that mom want that? And now I understand profoundly, if people think that they can give their kids a better life, then they will make all kinds of sacrifices. And I think that those little morsels from my own life kind of showed up, and that's what led me on this path. But I think everybody has a different reason, and they're just compelled to do this work in a lot of ways.
Okay. I love that. Well, man, this has been
it's been great.
This has been great. You're an thank you for everything you're doing, everything your organization is doing. And
helping us realize, we're really wanting to, continue to, utilize this platform to continuously show support, especially forever, because it's always going to be a battle in some way or another. There's not a magic button we get to press. I mean, that'd be cool.
Keep talking to us. I want to plug, there's tons of immigrant rights organizations.
Please, let us know.
So the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition is a coalition of nonprofits and other folks just across the state of Colorado, and they're really well connected across the entire state, which I think is really neat. The Immigrant Friends Service Committee, they also do incredible work. Colorado People's Alliance. There's a lot of folks who are like getting their hands dirty and working with community to try to support them. So yeah, we're definitely like the nerdier, boring lawyer side of things. There's some cool folks you should reach out to.
No, you're all cool to me.
Very
Thank
cool
you.
to me.
That's so kind.
It's one of those things where these are quantifiably good people, in my opinion. Sleep. Hopefully, every one of you sleep well at night. If the problem in your if you don't sleep well at night because you're worried about someone else, but otherwise you don't feel like you're on the wrong side of history, like we said.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And of course, if you are ordering cocktails, you have to get them without ice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Fuck ice.
Because fuck ice,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna change instead of fuck Chick-fil-A on this one, we're just gonna say fuck ice.
Yeah, it's fuck ice for this one for sure.
God bless you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you so much. This just been so much knowledge that we didn't have already, and thank you for coming on and taking your time to share with us. It's been a very enlightening conversation.
Yes. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Nice to be here.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is
We did it.
We did it. This is this episode. We don't know what number yet of Who the Fuck Closed Last Night. Thank you again, Lauren.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
So nice to chat with you both.
Well, all I have to say after that episode, fuck ice.